tap.
A tap.
A tap.
A tap.
Let's start with a chant. Nu te kau, nu praku, nu para, nu te kau.
Nu te kau, nu praku, nu para, nu te kau.
Nu te kau, nu praku, nu para, nu te kau.
Nu te kau, nu praku, nu para, nu te kau.
Nu te kau, nu praku, nu para, nu te kau.
Nu te kau, nu praku, nu para, nu te kau.
Nu te kau, nu praku, nu para, nu te kau.
Nu te kau, nu praku, nu para, nu te kau.
That's it. So we'd like to welcome you all here to our 2008 at Goddess Festival, or Goddess Festival. Do I need to speak louder? And we're here in Georgia, in the USA. However, even as we are here in Georgia physically, in the USA physically, we created we, in effect, created our own sacred space. And this is our sacred space. This is our Het Netar, or Temple of the Saturn. Many people go to Kemet and they go to the land and they leave there without a spiritual experience. I think I heard someone say that last night, that they visited but they didn't have that spiritual experience. So then what is it to be there but to not have the experience that our Kemetic ancestors worked so hard to produce a system to spiritually evolve, and you can go there and not have that experience. So what does it mean that you can actually come here to this room in Georgia and have that experience? So then I ask you, where is Kemet? So Kemet is here in this sacred space because we're actually living the teachings here. And that is what the legacy is for of the ancestors. It must be lived, not just to be discussed at an intellectual level and revered. So while we're here in this space, you are to revere it as if we are in the temple of the Saturn. So why is it that we need a sacred space? Why do we need to have a sacred space? Why do we need this sacred space? And the answer is up there, so you can... Because when humans become involved in the world, they forget their true nature. Right? And what is your true nature?
Spirit.
Technical difficulties here. So there's a proverb that actually says what? Men and women are what?
To become like gods.
To become like, or
To become gods.
to become,
Oh.
right? Are immortal gods and goddesses. So that's the true nature that we're here to discover, and that's what you're here to discover in this sacred space. So try to keep that focus throughout the program. You're here, you're enjoying yourself, but that is the focus of your being here. So even though it's a little bit intensive and the program's a little bit long, engage yourself in the practices to the fullest capacity. So the menu, we've heard this before, right? You heard this last night. Sajur. That's going to be the menu that we're going to serve this weekend. remembers what that is except for Sarah and Shen and the other aspirants or the Asari who knows.
Blood,
Blood,
Beer.
beer,
and spirit.
and
God
what's
stuff.
that other word? Mandarin. Mandarin. Very good, very good. So that potion, that concoction, that sedger, it relates to the glorious light meditation story. And if you recall from last night that was discussed, the glorious light meditation, it related to the goddess Heteru coming into the world, sent by Ra in the world to destroy evil men and women. But when she comes into the world, she what? Forgets her true nature. Right. So she forgets her true nature. And if you want to think about people forgetting their true nature, how low can you go? Think of Heteru. She's this goddess. She is the right eye of Ra. She's there in Kemet with all her fellow gods, her brothers and sisters. And she comes into the world for a short while. And she gets caught up in it, and she forgets herself. How low can you go? She got to the point that she actually, when her brother came to bring her home, to take her back to Kemet, she actually got to the point that she did what? She tried to eat it, right? So she's ready to kill her own brother because she had forgotten so much that she did not even recognize him or the divinity in him could not. So think about the depths of degradation that she had gotten to. And think about the depths of degradation that we see humanity in today. Brothers killing brothers, family members killing family members, and in a greater family also, in the spiritual family, because everyone is the essence of the divine. So everyone is one's brother or one's sister. So if you may kill somebody, that you don't know, but in essence you are killing your brother and your sister. So the story relates to us in a very powerful way. So in this story, if you recall, Lord Tehuti was sent to bring her back. And so he made this potion, this concoction of blood, beer, and magic, etc. And that formula was very powerful. It allowed him to be able to actually heal Goddess Heteru and restore her to her true essence and bring her back home to her rightful place with Ra. So what is it about this potion that is so powerful? That's going to be on our menu this weekend. So we said the sector is blood, beer, and mandrake. I hope this came out right, because last year I gave out the answers. So I have to change it. So blood, those who remember or know it, if you absolutely know it, don't say it. So for the others. Blood symbolizes who were here last year. What? What is the blood? What does it represent? Okay, so what I appreciated this year from you all, because I kept hearing the word Sidrat was used, and I kept hearing the word Knut Nefer, so those were all good things from last year that were absorbed. So the lesson for next year is that when I ask this question, you're all going to be able to answer it. So you may want to write it down for this year, for next year. So blood is the intoxication with worldly desire. It is I see some memories were jarred. So it is the egoism, it's awareness, I am the body. It is I eat bodies, I eat flesh, I eat meat, is that type of awareness and that type of worldly desire to, because you have talked to some people, and they tell you this is who I am, I'm a body, this is what I eat, I'm meat. I just had a conversation with my cousin. Her doctor told her that she has fatty liver and she should not eat the foods that she eats. So she said, I just told them honestly that it's going to have to wait till after the holidays because there's no way right now I cannot, because this is time to eat all the meat. So I said, what about, your health? She goes, no. She goes, and she starts naming all the foods that, that are going to be produced in the family. She says, there's no way I'm not going to eat that. So she says, so I reminded her, I said, hey, you remember I used to sit at the dining table, you've eaten all those foods, and I was able to do it. So if I can do it, you can do it also. But didn't. My carnivorous family in Toronto, very carnivorous. They have all these diseases, but still the meat is there. And beer. Okay, so now intoxication with worldly desire. Anyone else? The beer symbolizes intoxication with. Anyone can answer. Okay, so the beer is intoxication with worldly pleasure. Engaging in various actions in the world of time and space, with the idea that if I do this action, or if I do this thing, somehow I'm going to become happy as a result of it. So seeking pleasure in the world of time and space. It symbolizes ignorance. And now the mandrake is the easy one, because I already heard you mention it. So the mandrake is what?
Magic.
God stuff.
God stuff. Quote unquote. If you may have liberty to use that. So the mandrake is actually, when Saint Mama did the Glorious Light meditation, and he went into several years ago at Beckwith in Alabama, he actually went through and he read the hieroglyphs related to the text, and he went through line by line. And so when it got to the mandrake, it actually referred to the mandrake was actually, Ra put his like souls, it talked about kabals, the souls of Ra, that he infused into this mandrake. And so it's not just an ordinary herb or something, it's full of light, right? Because Ra is light. And Hetru, as a result, became enlightened. She was overtaken by the light. So he infused himself into that. So that's the intoxication with the vow of the souls of Ra, with fullness, infinity, and peace that comes through self-knowledge. So if you look at the bottom, the idea is if you have the first two, if you have just the blood, and if you just have the beer, you just have the body awareness, and you just have the pleasure seeking, then what do you have then? That's the world. The first one, beer is the blood is the world, beer is the world, and what are you left with? You're left with awakeness to the world. You're left to egoism, desire, greed, to the vices. But if you have the beer, and you have the blood, and you add a little bit of that mandrake in there, then what you have is a process that churns just the way it did in Heteru and leads to Nahas or to enlightenment. So coming here, we don't really ask people to give away their blood and to stop doing their beer. We just say, come as you are. And that's how sages generally, they accept disciples, anyone that wants to come and study. They don't necessarily say, oh, you have to become a vegetarian before you come, and you have to do this, and you have to get rid of all your ego and all of that when you come. Come as you are, and then a little bit of the mandrake is put into you. And then that starts turning. Now in your daily life also, you infuse yourself with that mandrake through your spiritual practices. Because if you just do the world and the world, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get egoism. But if you infuse a little bit of that, eventually it will start to. In the Matrix, remember the Matrix with Neo? When I can't remember the scene, but when he shot him with something, and then it went into him, and then he started to become full of light, and then he actually exploded. And so that is added.
That's towards the last part of it.
Right. I can't remember. It's
He
been
jumped
a long time
inside
since.
the villain.
Right, but the light basically started to overtake him, and then it exploded him, if I recall. And so that is essentially what you want this light, this enlightenment to do. You want the Bao, these souls of Ra, to start to basically expand within you, your consciousness, and just basically explode and destroy the egoism, so that all you become is that light, the pure light. So the temple, or the head netar, was created as a place where the pressures of the world can be relieved. And you can have an association with something other than a worldly perspective. An association with divinity can occur. I was just looking at a Star Trek show, and it had this little quote that came out of there. If your only reality is an illusion, then that illusion becomes your reality. Essentially, this is what. So if you only associate in the world and engage in things of the body, the mind, and you don't have a higher type of experience, then you're not going to be able to break away from that world. This is the process of the meditation of the Ua, that it allows you to have a transcendental experience, something different. So you can know there's a different reality, so then you can break that illusion of the world. Otherwise, it's going to keep you tied. So that's the process of engaging in spiritual disciplines. You have to have another experience, another reality. And coming here also, you're experiencing that other reality as well. So what are these pictures of? And a set, nurture and Heru, and it means
Giving them the wisdom.
what kind of wisdom, specifically?
So you can rise up and take
We have two types of wisdom. We have
Worldly and spiritual.
intellectual and intuitional, right. And then part of it is the intellectual aspect of the wisdom, learning and everything, but then also it's the intuition, which is the experience, the actual experience that comes from being enlightened. So such a place and its teachings are needed so that the mind can become aware of higher possibilities, away from or mental dullness due to kemen, which is ignorance, and be led to nahas, spiritual awakening to after to enlightenment. So such a place is needed for healing to occur. And ultimately, who is the I of Ra? Ultimately, who is the I of Ra?
We are.
You are, right. I am, right? So ultimately, you're the one that is to be healed. You're the one that's to be nurtured. So that's why we need to have the sacred space and the sacred time of the year. So this was just a general welcome as to what we're trying to accomplish here during our weekend program. I said it will be, a little bit intensive, but try to get up in the mornings. Even if you drag yourself out, if you can't drag yourself out of bed, get someone else who can drag you out of bed to go to the exercise programs, to the worship. Try to partake in as much as you can, according to your capacity, and it will be a very powerful experience for you. Okay, that's it. So that's the first part. So now we're going to go into Chateau Netter, the philosophy and introduction to netarianism, the religion of ancient Africa. And this is based on Sibama's book, Egyptian Mysteries, Volume 1, Chateau Netter. So many of you have gone through this before, so you'll know the answers to the questions. If you know the answers to the questions, just refrain for a little bit. If no one else answers, you're welcome to answer. So we're the Seam Institute. And the Seam Institute, we have two separate divisions. They're not really separate. They're intertwined, but essentially we separated into these two divisions. The Seam Institute has Seam University, where we offer the associates and the bachelor's degrees program. It has the bookstore, that we do the book sales, audio tapes, the membership program, the videos, and all of that is through that. Because sometimes people just want to buy a book. They don't want to come to a program. They don't want us to preach to them. They just want to buy the book. They want to read. Some people get in it more from an Afrocentric perspective, and they want to keep it there, at that level. So that is more of the Seam Institute. And then we have the Temple of Chateau Netter, which we have the priesthood programs. We do spiritual counseling. We have the initiations. And we have the worship programs such as this. So this is the Temple of the Sacrifice. So who are we? We're not a church in the sense of what you would think of a church in the West. And we're not a cult. We don't want you to blindly follow anything. We're not a New Age religion, because many people think, what is this that you're doing, and it sounds New Agey, and we haven't heard of it. So if they haven't heard of it, it's something that we just, invented now. And we're not the Masons. And we got the reason Sibama actually he usually gives his lecture, so I'm using his slides and some adjustment, because those are the questions he normally gets from people. So it's for clarification. What we are is Kemetan African religion. What are we?
Meta African religion.
What are we?
Kemetan African religion.
Okay, so that's what we are. And where was Shadow Nether practiced in ancient times?
Kemet.
Which is located in where in Africa?
Northeast quadrant.
Is it in the Middle East?
No.
So it's located in northeastern Africa. So we can use the word Kemet, but if you say Kemet many times, people may not know what you're referring to. But if you say Egypt, then they know. Well, we emphasize that we use the word ancient, Egypt. And the reason we use the ancient part of it is why? Because
Arabs.
It's changed.
Right now, the Egypt there is not the Egypt of ancient times. So the religion that is practiced there is not ancient Egyptian religion. And so that just has to be clarified for people sometimes, because many times if you say, oh, I practice Egyptian religion, they'll think you're practicing Islam, and we're practicing, what are we practicing?
Kemetic African.
Kemetic African religion. So what is Shaddai Neter? Shaddai means,
Hidden.
see, everybody, you have to leave it for the newbies. And if the newbies don't answer, then you can join in. So give it a second if you know the answer. That's good. That's okay. I guess a chorus of answers is also good. So it means secret or hidden. And Neter means?
Divinity.
Let's have the chorus, I guess, if you know it, shout it out. Divinity. So, the term Shetat Neter is not a term that we have invented. It's actually, the Neter, it's actually in the writings of Kemet. You can find it in the scriptures and the writings of Kemet. And these are some of the derivatives of it. And the one I want to focus on today, or just mention, because we'll actually read about it when we read the Netarian Creed, is Shetitu, which are writings related to the hidden teachings. So what is Shetitu?
Writings related to the teachings.
So who wants to sum up what Shetat Neter is from the definitions we gave of each word? It is what?
Hidden ways of the divine.
The teachings about the same thing, the teachings about the secret hidden divinity, the supreme being. And it is the earliest documented written African term for religion. I emphasize written there because many African traditions are oral traditions. And when many times people speak, and even teachers in schools, when they speak of African religion, oftentimes they are only referring to an oral tradition. And many times they're unaware that there is an actually written African tradition, something that has been codified. So it's important to make that distinction, that this is an actual oral tradition. And within our society, many times if you have these ecumenical groups of churches and leaders that are getting together, everyone, you always have represented, Buddhism, and you have Hinduism, you have Christianity, and there's never anything about African religion most of the times that I've seen. And I've seen the shows on TV from even FIU University in Miami, and they even have an African a teacher there who teaches African religion now, and somehow he was left out, and they have two different professors from there, but not that, that religion tradition was not represented. So even the oral African tradition needs to be able to be accepted in Western culture. And as well, the Kemetan tradition needs to be accepted within the African religion as well too, and to become scholars need to become aware of it, that it is a written tradition. So it's generally termed the Egyptian mysteries, and we have the lower mysteries, which are like the math, the sciences, and then the higher mysteries, which relate to the teachings related to intuitional knowledge or Nahasta enlightenment. So when we speak about Kemet and African religion, we are speaking about 3 stages of religion. And those 3 stages are?
Myth, ritual, mysticism.
Myth, ritual, and mysticism. So the myth is the story that is told, the natanu. And it generally has a meaning. It may involve proverbs, storytelling. And Shamsu can learn about the stories that way and learn about the religion that way. The ritual, Aru, is also practiced, and then the mysticism is generally what we refer to as Sheta Neter.
Also another word if you want to add it. Sebai.
So who are the ancient Kemetans and Nubians? This is some of my slides, so I keep it in here. If you've seen it before, don't answer. So in this picture, you have Kemetans and you have Nubians. And so the question is, who are the Kemetans and who are the Nubians?
Nubians are on the left. Kemetans are on the right.
Repeat that again?
The Nubians are the ones with the feathers, and the other ones are the Kemetans.
How is it you're coming to that conclusion?
By their headdress.
Okay, so that's very good.
Okay,
So-
ask for anyone else.
Oh, I know. time for So, very good. And you didn't say you were, sometimes people will say that they're telling because they'll go with the lighter ones and the darker ones. And why is it not the lighter ones or the darker ones? Because,
Use color for different.
right,
ritual
because
purposes.
the point is that the Nubians and the Kemetans, they look the same. And so there's often a question about who are the Kemetans, especially in Western culture, or the ancient Egyptians, black, were they not, were they aliens from outer space, who were they? And the idea is if you go to Ethiopia, if you go anywhere in there and you look at the color of the people that live there, and that's today. And this picture is telling you that the Kemetans look just like those people. So then it tells you the Kemetans were African, black African people. So before the Songhai Empire, before Timbuktu, before the Mali Empire, before the Ghana Empire, before Islam, before Christianity, before Greek civilization, before the Sumerians, there was
Kemet.
So part of this study of the teachings also is about reclaiming netarian African philosophy, culture, and spirituality, and in doing so, civilization as well. So Shaitan Neter is the first religion. And how we have proof of that is because of the Hermatic, the Sphinx. This is the Sphinx, the picture at the bottom is the Sphinx enclosure. And you see those vertical grooves in there, right? Those vertical grooves were created by what?
Water.
Water from where? A flood?
Blood.
A flood?
Yeah.
A flood?
Rain.
Rain.
From what? Rainfall.
I see Noah in the picture to the right.
Delusion.
No. No, so by rainfall. And if you know, like rain, is very soft. So for rain to fall on rocks over a period of time to actually create these vertical grooves, it would take a long time. And the last time there was enough rainfall in that area to produce these enough rain to cause these grooves was around 7,000. Here it says 10,000. Well, we'd say 7,000, and then for the time period to actually produce. So it had to be before that. So at least 10, 12,000. And again, this is physical, geological proof that you cannot really argue it. Because then you're arguing with whoever the scientists are that actually found the little things and carbon dated and all of that. It may not be acknowledged by others, but it is scientific evidence. So when was netarian religion practiced in ancient times? So this is a timeline. I think it's in the books. And you can see that we have Shatanetra beginning around 10,000 BCE. And the other traditions, I don't have the pointer, but they all come in after that. The Indus Valley around 4,000, Sumerian around 3,000, Hinduism around 1,000, and everything else after that. And of course, you know when Christianity came in, right? Slides, and I think it's probably more than I realized. So, Shatanetra was also influenced. There were some other slides here, and I think in trying to cut out some things this morning, I cut out some things that weren't meant to be cut out, so we'll just go to this one directly. So Shatanetra has influenced all the major world religions, and including African traditions and traditions outside of Africa. One of the things that, however, we emphasize is just because it has influenced it does not mean that it is equal to those traditions. You cannot say what is practiced in Christianity. If you practice Christianity today because there's so many similarities and it came out of Tibetan religion, that you're practicing Tibetan religion, because that is not the case. And the same thing with Yoruba. Many times we get calls from people and they say, oh, we have that in Yoruba also. And yes, there are a lot of correlations because the teachings spread out from Kemet and Kush to the rest of Africa, so there are a lot of correlations within the religions, but it's not the same practice. So the practice of Shatanetra, there's two aspects to the way that we teach it and we practice it. There is the universal understanding, the universal aspect, that the essence of everyone is the divine. Therefore, everyone is Kemetan in that sense. Everyone is African in that sense. Humanity also, all humans came from Africa, birthplace of humanity. So everyone in that sense is African. So when we promote the teachings of Shatanetra, it is a universal teaching. Anyone can practice it. We don't limit it to any ethnicity or any particular sex or anything. It's open to all. It's a universal teaching. Because everyone, as I said, is the essence of the divine. And then there's another aspect, however, that we also sometimes emphasize. It depends on our venue and where we are. We can have a more of a cultural emphasis in the way we present it as well. It doesn't always have to have a cultural emphasis, but we can. And in this venue, we emphasize a little bit more of the culture. We emphasize the universal, but we also present it in a way that's also a little cultural. John Henry Clark, it says that Africa will not be free until its leaders pray to African gods and goddesses without apology. So, many people study, even in the Afrocentric groups, they are very involved in those traditions, but then where do they go and worship on Sundays? Right, many of them go to church and are involved with Christianity. And if we want to redeem African culture, which many of them are trying to do through the Afrocentric movement, that's not going to work. You have to worship your African gods and goddesses, and without apology. And the without apologies is important, because even in your only daily lives, you know how it is. If you were to imagine, I think for most of you, I don't know where you work, but if you were to actually take your statues of the various divinities, and you were to take it into your workplace, and you were to create a little altar on your desk, and you have your little African emblems, you would probably have to do a lot of apologies. And you can say I'm not going to do it, but then your boss is going to think this about you or that about you, and you're practicing this strange thing, and they're not going to understand, and then it's going to create disharmony. And we don't advocate doing that in a way. So keep it hidden, keep it secret, keep it to yourself. In other words, create your sacred space in which you can practice it without apology. Come to here where you can practice it without apology. But you have to ultimately speak to those that understand you. So we're not advocating that you go out into the to the world and you totally disregard your practical realities and say, to boss, I'm sorry, I'm practicing my African religion. But you can, if you want to take a day off because it's a spiritual holiday, you can tell them it's my religion, and then, I have a special day off and I would like to take it off. But, don't throw it in people's faces when they don't understand what it is. So the crucial differences between Western traditional African and netarian African religion. Western religion, right? Religion, we said, has three parts. And Western religion is missing which part?
Mysticism.
Right. Has the myth, has the ritual, and has mysticism. And also traditional African religion, they have myths, they have the certain rituals, but they too lack the mystical aspect. Now, many people and practitioners of African religion will actually debate you on this, because they feel that they do, like, by the possessions that, practice possessions and things like that, they equate that to becoming united with the divine. And it's not the same thing as attaining oneness with the divine, because there's not that experience of you're attaining oneness with your higher self. There you're being possessed by some divinity that is different and separate from you, and they're coming to you and taking you over, so it's not the same thing. And then we have netarian African religion, and so we practice, this is what we refer to as authentic religion. Many times we would say you have to practice authentic religion. Now, this is not the only authentic religion. There are other spiritual traditions that are equally authentic, but how you determine if a religion is authentic is that it has to have all three components to it. It has to have the myth, has to have the ritual, but it also must have the mystical component. And there's Gnostic Christianity, and all of the traditions, the spiritual traditions, they have actually sects or segments that practice mysticism. So you have, in Islam, you have Sufism, which is the mystical Islam. In Judaism, you have Kabbalism, and you have Gnostic Christianity. So within those traditions, they do have potential mystical components that can be practiced. It's just generally not practiced. So netarianism is a term that actually Sebama intuited or came up with and put forth. And it refers to those who follow Shetal Neter. So, for those who follow it, they're termed netarians. Right? You have those who follow Buddhism, they're Buddhists. Those who follow Christianity, they're Christians. So, netarians are, because you can say I'm a Shetal Neter follower, but when you say the term netarian, that essentially encompasses that in an abbreviated form. So, Shamsu Neter means the follower of Neter, and it means a person who's following the teachings of Shetal Neter. And you see the two little feet, right? And you see it's walking in the direction of what? What is the little flag symbol of?
Neter.
Neter. So It's a follower of Netar. So, who was the founder of netarianism?
Captain.
Who was?
Captain. Captain.
So Lord Capri. He's the founder of netarianism. He brought forth creation out of himself, the primeval ocean, the noon. And then he sustains it by sail, wind, and spar. So, Lord Capri, so essentially we also have a divine lineage. And the lineage of Shadow Netar is as follows. Lord Capri gave the teachings to I can't hear you all. Be bold. Lord Jehuti and Lord Jehuti did what with the teachings? No, before he did that, he codified it, right? And then he
Disseminated.
to the lineage. We're going into lineage. So from
Aset.
Aset,
Asar.
Asar,
And,
is that a terrible hint? I thought it was a good hint. Who else did he give it to? Asar, Aset, and Setur, Nukata, Nukra. I heard it. Heteru. Yeah. Right? Because although we didn't go through the whole story, remember last night Sarwin Shen talked about the parable that he told her about the lion and the mouse. So he had actually told her like 2 or 3 other parables, and each of those parables actually gave her teachings related to the spiritual process. They taught her about Ma'at, they taught her about devotion, they taught her about all the teachings in those parables. So she became enlightened through that process also. So he gave her teachings as well. And then he gave them to Asar and to Aset. And then you remember Asar, right? He went out and to spread civilization, and he disseminated the teachings, and they transferred those teachings then to the priests and priestesses, Asar, Aset, and Heru. And Asar and Aset also to their son, who?
Heru.
And then those teachings have come down this lineage through the priests and priestesses to? So you're also in the lineage. Now I mentioned this aspect of lineage also because related to African religion, many of them are big on lineage. And last year I was joking that Sibama gets calls and from people in other African religions, and they want to know, and they'll just get on the phone. I just want to know, what is his lineage? What is his lineage? What gives him the authority to be able to call himself a priest and to say he's the head of this organization? Because many other traditions, they only revere a lineage that is linked by blood. But the blood linkage is something physical. You are linked by the second, by the life force energy to the divine. And everyone is linked to the divine in that way. So that is the only lineage that you need to really be concerned about. So if anybody wants to know your lineage, say, okay. Aset, Asar, they want you to tell them their father, but just, as you know with your families, right? Just being born into a particular family doesn't mean that your parents were enlightened and that your children are going to be enlightened. So the blood lineage cannot be relied upon. So this is our divine lineage. And it's really the divine lineage of everyone. The essence that I want you to get from this picture, and my pointer's not working, mainly that with all the interrelationships of the different gods and goddesses is that within the Kemetic tradition we have a balance of male and female. You have Shu, you have Tepnut, you have Geb, you have Nut. You have Asar, you have Aset. And so that also comes into our practice of the tradition. There's no sexism that is practiced. No, males are higher and females are this, and females, if you're having your menstrual cycle, you got to sit over here, and all these other things. There's an equality between males and females, and it should be practiced that way. We also have within our tradition sacred scriptures. We have many sacred scriptures. We have scriptures that are mythic in origin. We have scriptures that are mystical. And we have the wisdom texts. So the mythic scriptures, the Sheta Asara Separu, the story of Asara Separu, is one of the most popular ones. The mystical philosophy, the literature, we have the pyramid text, the coffin text, the papyrus text, and then the wisdom text we have for the wisdom literature and the Ma'at declarations. So it's very rich, even though everything that there is to be discovered has not been discovered. What we have is already still abundant. So the most important myth of Sheta Nefer is the story of Asara Separu. So those of you who have not read the Assyrian Resurrection or the new title, Assyrian Theology, African Religion, Volume 4, that would be something that you would need to get into as one of your basic mythologies and to basically have an understanding of the African tradition. Like even when you read the Persian root text already presuppose that you've already studied the Assyrian resurrection story and you have an understanding of it. So it makes references to it with the idea that when it makes a reference, you'll already be able to know what it's referring to because you have already gone through that. So this story was so important in ancient times and in our times as well, in our tradition, that each of the divinities had their own temple. So this is the temple of Asar in Abdu. Where does that word, remember the song, Du Asar, Una Fernetara, Du Asar?
Eternity.
The heart, right, the innermost essence. And then we have the temple of Asat. And then also Haru has his own temple, Nefu. I think we are hoping in the next trip to Kemet to be able to focus on the temple of Haru and Nefu. No?
Sorry.
Where they are? Okay, I thought they were in Nefu. So the next trip to Kemet, the temple of Asar in Abdu. So what do we Netarians believe? We have the four great truths of Sheta Nefer, which the Rama has put together based on the scriptures into a formula of our beliefs, into four great truths. It's a very succinct formula that encompasses everything we believe. So the first one is? Okay, Paneter, Ua Nebajer, and Neteru. The Neter, the supreme divinity, is one and alone, as Nebajer, manifested everywhere and in all things in the form of the gods and the goddesses. So right away, this tells you that, are we polytheistic tradition? No. There's one supreme divinity that we believe in. The next verse says? Lack of righteousness brings fetters to the personalities, and these fetters cause what? Ignorance of the divine. And the next verse? Seyuashu, Seynafu, and Sayuset. Devotion to the divine leads to what? Freedom from the fetters of Set. And the last verse? Ari, Sheki, Rekab, and Makar. The practice of the study of the disciplines, the Sheti disciplines, leads to knowing oneself and the divine. And we're going to talk about the Sheti disciplines later on. This is called being true speech. So the last line actually tells you have to work at it. You have to practice the Sheti disciplines to be able to attain freedom from the fetters of Set and freedom from ignorance, and to become Makkari. So what do we Netarians believe? This is our Netarian creed. Again, this was something that Tivama and I guess myself formulated based on the teachings, based on the scriptures and traditions of Sheta Neter. As a Netarian, I follow the ancient African committing religious path of Sheta Neter, which teaches about the mysteries of the Supreme Being, Nebajer, the all-encompassing divinity. I believe that from Nebajer proceed all the Neteru, the gods and goddesses, and all the worlds and the entire universe. You all agree? You believe that? Okay. Since Nebuchadnezzar manifests as Netaru, Nebuchadnezzar can be worshipped as a god or a goddess. Correct?
Yes.
I believe that there is only one supreme being, Nebuchadnezzar, and that the gods and goddesses are expression of the one supreme being, Nebuchadnezzar. True?
Yes.
As a netarian, I strive to come into harmony with the gods and goddesses, the Netaru, by developing within my personality the different virtuous and divine qualities they symbolize. This will lead me closer to Nebuchadnezzar. As a netarian, I also believe that the supreme being I call Nebuchadnezzar is the what? Is the same supreme being that is worshipped by other religions under different names. I believe that Nebuchadnezzar established all creation on Ma'at, righteousness, truth, and order, and that my actions, termed Ari, determine the quality of life I lead and experience. If I act with Ma'at, positive Ari, my path will be free of suffering and pain. When I forget Ma'at and act in unrighteousness, negative Ari, I invite what? Suffering and pain into my life. As a netarian, I believe when my body dies, my heart's action will be examined against Ma'at. If it is found that I upheld Ma'at during my lifetime, I will have positive Ari, and my Aku spirit will become one Nebuchadnezzar for all eternity. This is called Nahas, the spiritual awakening and enlightenment. If it is found that I acted with selfishness and greed, I will have negative Ari, and my Ba will suffer after death, and then be what? Reincarnated. So we believe in reincarnation. Again, to live in the world of time and space again. This is called what? Reincarnation, the term for it is Ulam Ankh. As a netarian, I believe in the teaching of Shemsu, following the path of Chetan Netar by practicing the disciplines of Shedi, which include the study of the wisdom teachings, Rek'ab, devotion to God, Uashu, acting with righteousness, Ma'at, and meditation, Uah. Nebuchadnezzar provided the Sheti too, the spiritual teaching that was written in the Netar, the hieroglyph scripture, so that the Shemsu followers might study the wisdom teaching of Chetan Netar. Two most important Netarian scriptures are the Pertamaru and the Hessia moon, the hymns of the moon, which is Egyptian Yoga Volume 2, Theban religion or theology. And the most important Netarian myth is the Assyrian resurrection, so you have to know that myth. So read the last part with me. By practice of the Shedi, I will discover Sheta's mysteries of life and become Makari, purified. I will become one with God even before death. And I will discover supreme peace, abiding happiness, and fulfillment of my life's purpose, and promote peace and harmony for the world. So those are our beliefs. So everyone in life is searching for what?
Happiness.
And seeking it through many different actions. This is like Sigama's favorite slide. That's his little, he loves that little gas can. And the guy walking from the car. So I kept it in here. Because it symbolizes you're going on and you have your relationships and you have your family and you have your work and you're having your fun and you're living your life, you have your house, and then trouble. Trouble comes. Something happens. And when trouble comes to most people think that that's how life is supposed to be. Life is just, ups and downs, and that's all there is to it. So when the trouble comes, good times you enjoy it, make the most of it. The bad times you try to get through it. And the good times will come again, and you're just in this roller coaster ride of life, and nothing beyond it. But the teachings tell us that searching for ourselves in the world is the pursuit of an illusion. So our teachings, they guide us as how to attain the purpose of life and the goal of life. How to rise above the trouble even as you experience it, because there's no way to exist in the world of time and space and not have the trouble. That's just part of the world of time and space. It's made up of ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. But there's something that penetrates through those ups and downs, and that is the attainment spiritual enlightenment. It allows you to go beyond the normal ups and downs. So the purpose of human life is to achieve a state of consciousness apart from bodily concerns. Men and women are to become godlike through a life of virtue, cultivation of the spirit through scientific knowledge, practice, and body disciplines. And so these teachings, they lead us to attain the Great Awakening, which is called
Nahast.
Nahast. And this is just to once again show that it's one supreme being manifesting through the many different gods and goddesses. So in our tradition, the divinities can be represented in anthropomorphic and zoomorphic iconography, and also composite iconography. Which one is the anthropomorphic?
Find the human.
Right.
Hmm?
I'm on him.
Human figure.
Oh,
Which one up there is?
Oh,
Anthropomorphic? What do you say? A moon, right, all the way to the right. Which one is zoomorphic?
And hurt. Oh, hurt.
Let me heard her, the one, the cow divinity, and then which one is the composite? So we actually have two composites, right?
That's it.
Right, instead of, and Ra, or Hermes. So the Shetty disciplines the four main Shetty disciplines are selfless service, Armat, and wisdom. And the human personality has four different aspects, which are
Will.
your willpower,
Action.
your action capacity,
Intellect.
your intellect, and your emotional capacity, right? So each of the disciplines actually has been made to deal and to purify and to spiritualize, to infuse with the Bao of Ra, the souls of Ra, different aspects of your personality, so that all of your personality becomes enlightened in an integral manner. If you only practice the meditation, and that's all you want to do, and you don't practice Ma, it's going to be a disbalanced movement. It's not going to work. If you only want to chant and practice, or you only want to do devotional chanting, and that's it, and you don't practice the meditation of the other aspects, it's not going to work. You have to enlighten all of these four aspects of the personality. So that's why we practice this in an integral movement. So the emotion is enlightened through the practice of what? Devotion. The reason and the intellect is enlightened through the practice of the wisdom teachings. The action is enlightened through the practice of selfless service of Armat. And the willpower is developed through the practice of meditation. So an integral movement involves the aspects of all of these. Otherwise, it's like if you're going to the airport and you have 4 bags to take. And granted, these days you don't want to take 4 bags because you have to pay for each one. But if you're going with 4 bags and you pack 1 or you pack 2 and then you get to the airport and you go, oh my goodness, like I forgot my other 2 bags. What has to happen? You have to turn back around and go all the way back there to pick up the bags you left behind. So if you're only focusing on 1 or 2 aspects of this, and the other part of your personality is like way back there, you may advance very far in that part, but you're going to fall. And you're going to have to go all the way back, pick up those other parts of the personality, enlighten them, bring them forward so that you become a balanced person. In the West, oftentimes, when people say yoga, they refer mostly to the yoga exercise. The yoga exercise or the Jethna retreat that you did this morning, what it's a very powerful system within our system. It's an aspect of the meditation system. But what is powerful about it is that it encompasses actually within itself the four disciplines as well. So it's not just an exercise system, and it's not even just a meditation system, but it also has the wisdom teachings as you're engaged in the postures. You're thinking about the wisdom teachings related to it, and you can actually, some things may be said about the different postures to relate you to that. You're having a devotional feeling as you're doing it, because you're actually emulating the divine, the gods and the goddesses. As you're practicing the postures, you're actually those divinities. You're actually Ra as you do the journey of Ra. So you have the devotional aspect of it there also. And righteous action, you're engaging in your Shari disciplines. So also as a part of the practice of Kshetra Nectar is the daily worship.